Good evening, Julien.
Good morning, Max. How are you doing today?
Well, I could be better. I have some government pressure on me,
What have
and
you
I'm
done?
finding it's a little harder to be compliant than I expected. So let me jump on the couch and let me explain myself.
Please do.
So you may or may not be aware, uh, California, we're entering into, or we are in a bad drought. And articles in the paper today about how long the process is going to take before we have water mandates, and it's a pretty quick process, so it's all coming, and I knew this was the case. I have reduced the amount of time our sprinklers run, and I watched them and adjusted all of the various sprinkler heads, etc., so they don't spray off in bizarre places, etc. But what I noticed was in one of the stations, when I turn off the water starts bubbling up out of the sprinkler and runs down the street. So I am, water scofflaw 101. It's terrible. At the end of every cycle, just a ton of water goes running away. So I did a little research online and found out that what happens is when some sprinklers are lower than others, the water runs down to those. And when it's turned off, if you don't block it, the water comes up out until the pipes are drained. So that's what's happening is my pipes are draining out onto the street. So what do you do? Well, I read a little more, and you need a stopgap uh, filter that turns it off when the pressure's off. And so I read about that. Great. I have 3 sprinkler heads. I'll just go to the hardware store and either get an add-on of that valve, or I will get new sprinkler heads, because gosh, a sprinkler head's a whole $7. What the heck? $21 to not be a scofflaw. I'm in. So I went down to the hardware store, and you may have noticed the way I was stumbling on the name of this valve, and I'm not sure I got it right as it is. So I had my phone out, and I went to the first large hardware store, and I looked, and there was no mention of this valve anywhere in any of the documentation anywhere. And this was, and I found this term 3 or 4 times on different websites, including the manufacturer's websites. So finally, I'm like, okay, I got to go find somebody to help me. And I found a woman who took me to a man who said, I don't know anything about that, and then was ready to just send me off into the wilds. But the woman very nicely said, oh, let's try this guy over here. He at least knew what I was talking about, and said, well, I've never seen those with sprinklers. I have no idea that exists, but let's go look at it for general plumbing purposes, and maybe we can find one that fits. And we looked and we didn't. And we had a nice chat. And finally, I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. The other thing is there are pressure regulated heads. And I was like, is that related to it? He's like, I have no idea what that is. I don't think so. So, okay. So off literally where I live, less than a mile away, is another different big box hardware store. So I went there. This time I was very efficient looking, because I knew what I was looking for, and I knew I wouldn't find it. Found the guy, bounced to a couple guys, got the guy who had just said to his friend, okay, I'm going on break now. And I sheepishly said, I need sprinklers with this kind of feature. And he's like, never heard of that feature. So back we went, look at the sprinklers, and it wasn't, couldn't find it. I'm like, all right, I got to go back and do more research. So I did more research. This time I found out there's a different name that the manufacturer, even though one of the manufacturers was using this other term about the valve, the manufacturers have their own name for it. It's a SAM sprinkler. I don't remember what the acronym stand for, and it stood for 2 different things. So now I'm like, okay, so you need that. And then, and this different manufacturer, I looked at, they had a little diagram so I could see it and all of that. And then time ran out. I couldn't rush back to the sprinkler store. So the simple act of get the right sprinkler head, pull it out, swap it in. And then I'm like, okay, I'll just buy them online and next weekend I'll have them. And I go online and they have the sprinkler heads, but they don't have the nozzles. So now I have to buy separate nozzles and they don't make it clear which nozzles fit with which sprinklers. So this phenomenally easy thing became insanely hard. And, a lot of it is I want to use the word stupid, but I think it's more realistic to say I'm ignorant. So I don't know what to ask for and I don't know how to look for it. And boy, if you're in the sprinkler world and you don't know that, you're in a world of hurt. So I'm still wasting water right now. I did shorten my cycles, so I'm helping a little bit, but it's going to take me until the weekend. Hopefully, I'll be able to sort this out.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's funny because we have different ways of shopping. We have similar issues. I don't know if you remember last week I was telling you a story about the baby industry, and I feel it's somehow similar. Where if you are not a super expert, you can find your way around, and no one is gonna help you out. We have a different way of browsing items. I see that the first thing you do is going to a store, which is admirable. I tend to go online first. Which is incredibly lazy, but especially if I find the information online, they usually provide a link with the item. I click on it, I buy online. I usually don't bother going to the store.
And I little clarification. I did some initial research where I found out, this is the thing you need. But then you're right. Then at that point, I went to the store because it was Sunday and I wanted to do it today, right now. Otherwise, it's hard during the week to have time to go digging around in the yard.
That's true. But what I found, and usually, so here, what I see in your situation is the manufacturer doesn't know its business, meaning having different names for the same product with acronyms that mean different things and a different word on the website, on the catalog, in the store. That is terrible. Packaging is terrible, not the physical packaging, but the fact to bundle items together, making sure the nozzle comes together with the rest, or at least having the information, that's terrible. From the manufacturer perspective, that is literally terrible. Surprised they're not getting out of business, but it's probably because it's meant for experts, not for people like you. Probably for,
I think that's a lot of it.
I think it's for professionals who would actually set up the entire thing.
And the other thing that speaks to that is they sell a lot of 10 packs.
All right, so you're probably not the right audience. Yeah. Now, the other reason why I usually don't go to the store is I find very little, and I'd love to get your input on this, I find very little added value compared to the internet. And let me tell you why I'm saying this. In the past, I remember when I was a kid, when you would go to stores, hardware stores, you would have experts, real experts advising you on what to buy. Now, since that time, things have changed, and I know it firsthand because I used to work in some IKEA kind of store where I was in charge of the electrical department, and I was here to give advice to people on what to buy, and I didn't have a clue about electrical appliances, so I would just look at the box and look very confident and tell them this is what you need, not having a damn clue about what they actually needed.
And sometimes you were right.
And I'm pretty sure, if not 50%, at least 30% of the time, I must have been right. But and I find it frustrating that most of the stores, and I don't know how it is in the US, I'm just talking for France here, but most of the stores no longer have experts. They just have salespeople who are barely here just to refill the storage, just put the products back on the shelf, and somehow help you get direction, but they're not real experts like some hardware stores used to have. It looks like the people you talk to were knowledgeable and very keen on helping you out, but they did not have that expertise either, or did they?
No, they did not. I couldn't agree with you more on that observation. And I think as consumers, we've done it to ourselves because the big box stores come in and they're cheap and we go for cheap. And, to heck with getting help. I can figure it out online. Why do I need help? I just want the cheapest thing. There was a chain here that recently went out of business, or mostly went out of business, where you were more likely Not guaranteed, but you were more likely to get someone who had a clue how a sprinkler worked. And I did get a guy who knew how a sprinkler worked, but he didn't know the details at all. And that's, I agree with you. That's what we're down to now. And it hurts, and it doesn't matter how cheerful and quick they are to get you to the right section of the store. If they can't answer your detailed question, does you no good.
And therefore that's a mix. There is, okay, manufacturer doesn't give the right product naming, lack of information, lack of product bundle, but ultimately you're not the right audience, and therefore all these problems probably don't matter when you're talking to professionals. So the question is, are you the only one in this world who actually look for sprinkler, and therefore there is no market, and therefore no one is going to care about your problem, so you're still going to be very isolated in this kind of issues? Or is there a bigger market of individuals who want to buy a single sprinkler, in which case it's a huge missed opportunity for that business, not just at manufacturer, but all of its competitors as well? Because if you did not find an easy way to buy it, meaning that there is no easy way for your audience, the one that you represent, your kind of buyer, to find this kind of product, that's a missed opportunity.
I think you've hit the perfect note to close on. I would argue that your observation, I'm not that unique, just given, now granted, it was a very small sample size, the amount of time I had to wait around to look at the pieces I wanted because somebody was in there buying something and they sure didn't look like the contractor who had his cart with a whole bunch of stuff in it. So I do think there's a missed opportunity there.
All right. So you know what? You contact the sprinkler guys. I contact the baby guys. We put them together. They create a task force and they figure out how to take care of their audience properly.
Perfect. All right. We've just revolutionized 2 industries.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you feel better.
I do. This was very helpful. I needed that.
All right. So let us know how the water is going in your corner. And I wish you have a beautiful and sunny week then.
Yeah. Same. And I hope you have a wonderful evening and rest of the week as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Max. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.